in the entrance so that people can see the upcoming event. And we also want to be able to send out mass emails to the entire school.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, a bulletin board is definitely a respectable idea, but we feel that attempting to fix up the student union's communications issues with things like that is simply not enough, because the student union clearly has a problem with communication, and we believe that that problem does start with underclassmen, and we will take extraordinary care, if elected, to reach out to underclassmen, not just by throwing dances for them, but by actually going to Camps Type Part 2, introducing ourselves as the heads of the student union, and explaining to the student body and the incoming freshmen there what the student union is, what it does, and exactly how they can get involved. During Camps Type Part 2, we would also decimate links to a Google sign-up form, because I'm not sure why SurveyMonkey was ever suggested in the first place, but that was one of your promises. But a Google sign-up form for a mailing list that will serve as an effective means for not only us to communicate to the next year's entire freshman grade, but once their freshman caucus is elected, we will pass that mailing list on to them so they can communicate to their grade as well. So if fighting apathy and communication are to be addressed, you definitely have to start early. Thank you.
Can I go tell them to be quiet?
Yeah.
I'm scared. I don't know what to say.
Alright, so obviously, from the looks of it, the student union is flawed, as you can tell. So if you guys are elected, what is the first problem you guys would address, and how would you guys go about doing so?
Well, we essentially did answer that in our last response, which is that we believe that apathy and communication are the major issues in which the student union is lacking, and we'll address that immediately before next year's between next year even starts by going to Camps Type and beginning there.
Because we believe that if we want to fight apathy, we have to start with those underclassmen. I mean, attempts to improve the apathy of upperclassmen is great too, but those people are going to graduate, and the new underclassmen who haven't been receiving, the underclassmen who are going to be upperclassmen are going to have the same issue. So we have to start with those people first.
Yeah, as a freshman, I had some vague idea what the student union was, and I think I was one of the exceptions because most of my friends did not even know that we had a student union. That's how bad it was. In the past 2 years, my current Vice President, William, and I have done everything we can to fix that, but regrettably, to some extent, the damage is done. And that is why we want to make sure that we're not just going to fight apathy, we're actually going to prevent it. And we're going to prevent it by making sure that the student union has a lot of involvement in students' lives from the very start. Not when they become seniors, not when they become juniors, as soon as they enter their freshman year. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. So yes, Christoph is right in the sense that underclassmen apathy is a very, very dangerous thing. But we'd like to point out that over the past several, well, let's just do a 1-year correlation, right? From last year, junior caucus tickets have went up by 125%. Senior and sophomore caucus tickets have went up by 100%. The only thing that's decreased is student union tickets, which went down from 3 to 2. Now, that doesn't necessarily state anything in terms of apathy, that's accurate. But if we would like to compare, there has been a positive trend over the last 10 years from 2006, which was an archive that we found, which had around 600 total unique voters. Shazia, do you remember how many were in the last student union race?
More
Yes, more than 600 voters. So yes, unfortunately, that
1/5 of the student population.
1/5 of the student population, which is, I guess we'll go around 720.
Yeah.
As a result, yes, over the past 10 years, we've seen 120 unique voter increase. And no, I'm not saying that that's something we should be celebrating right off the bat, but it shows a positive trend in not only voter turnout, but increased participation in student government through these increase of tickets. Now what I'm trying to get at is, political apathy still exists, yes. But we're getting there, slowly, step by step, and that's what we need to take. Baby steps where we try our best, and what I mean by that is, no, we accomplish what we promised. Because the more people see what the student union can do, the more people want to get involved. The more excited and ecstatic people get about what we do, the more people care. And that is what we promise. People that care.
Well, it's certainly... Yeah.
Hold on.
You set the timer. All right.
You have
2 minutes. Okay. It certainly is wonderful that the student union is already fighting apathy, but that begs the question, if apathy is improving, why are there only 2 tickets running for student union this year? In fact, had either of us not run, they would either have had to ask for more people to run and basically beg people to run, or the other one would have won automatically. You would think if apathy is not that big an issue, you would have, last year we had 3. You would have had 4, 5, maybe even 6 unique tickets running for student union presidency. And yet, it's just the 2 of us. So clearly, even among upperclassmen, apathy is a very big issue. I don't feel that anything more needs to be said. Thank you.
Alright. So do you guys like to respond?
One-liner. Apathy and the turnout of tickets do not correlate. It's the voter turnout that we're really pointing out. Thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to take a moment and just address one particular issue in that we are the Board of Elections, and so we do have some hand in how voters turn up and that sort of thing. 2011, we basically started StyVote, which is essentially an electronic voting system. So that made voting easier, and I just want that to be taken into consideration as you make your decision on Monday. So the next question will be, what holds you accountable? What will you do if certain goals are unfulfilled? And why should the student body trust you? I understand this is the same theme, but I feel like I really want to drive it home. So we're going to start with John and Matthew.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, okay. So, yes, what holds us accountable, and what do we do if essentially something doesn't necessarily go our way? Well, to really combat these issues, Matthew and I have been pursuing this leadership program that was offered by Angel Cologne. It's called Coro Leadership, and it takes place here in New York City, actually here in these very walls, Stuyvesant. It's a leadership program trained not only to working with the Department of Education, but as well as each school's administration and the borough student advisory councils of each borough. So I'm sure you're wondering, what would we do if there's some kind of unfair administrative pushback? Well, that's why we have student leadership teams. We'll call upon the help of the Parents Association. We'll do more than that. We'll bring it to this BSAC meeting where not only DOE representatives will attend, but we can directly connect it to the Chancellor's Student Advisory Council, Chancellor Farina, which is a direct route to not only the DOE system, but to the school. But before we get all technical, of course we're going to take this as hard as we can to Ms. Zhang, knock on her door, and plead what the students want. Because we're not being unreasonable at the end of the day. We're just representing what the student's voice really is.
An important thing to note that is, I know a lot of you are worried about administrative pushback with all of our ambitious campaign goals. And I just want to make sure that you all know that before we presented them before you, we had them looked over by Mr. Palazzo and Ms. Pedrick. Mr. Palazzo is the coordinator of student affairs, and Ms. Pedrick is the guidance of is the AP of guidance. So all of these have been fact-checked, if you will, by the administration.
Joseph, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. The question, I will repeat again. What holds you accountable? What will you do if certain goals are unfulfilled? Why should a student body trust you?
Right,
And
well-
so you start now.
Well, thank you, John, for answering what you would do in terms of going to the administration, but I would actually like to answer what holds us accountable as student union leaders. And the fact is, nothing does, because of our current constitution, which is problematic in more ways than I have time to explain. If a student union leader does not want to be held accountable, all they have to do is simply hire more than 60% of the student union cabinet. All they need to do is hire their friends to positions that would vote on them to impeach them. This is, as Ryan Boodram, who is sitting here, correctly pointed out, more or less the equivalent of Obama single-handedly appointing 60% of Congress, which you can imagine is pretty absurd. And that is just to point out that our Constitution has not been amended in ages, and it has not been reviewed in ages, and there are many things in here that essentially promote corruption, promote nepotism, and promote a student union that cannot be held accountable for anything it does, claims to do, or says it will do in the future. Therefore, to actually make ourselves accountable, one of the first things we will do if elected is amend the Constitution to make it easier to impeach officials and student union representatives who do nothing. And we will do that by consulting both The Spectator, the Junior Statesmen of America, a club which has already gone to us numerous times to explain just how many things are wrong with the Constitution. And with their help, we will form a Constitution where if student union leaders do nothing, then rather than have my friends vote on impeaching me, who, I would just have to hire my friends, of course they'll vote no, we would actually do it by public referendum. We would, in order to impeach someone, you would need signatures, and with a sufficient number of student body signatures, you can have a recall and a re-election in the middle of the year. Because if we don't do what we promised to do, we want to be held accountable. And if for some reason we don't do what we plan to accomplish, we want to be impeached. Thank you.
Alright, so now you each have 2 minutes to respond.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
I'd like to just first state that it says a lot that you think your friends would prioritize friendship over the role of an administration and position. I think that's embarrassing. I think that's embarrassing to state that there's not only corruption in the student union that you are actually a part of, but to think that you were appointed out of corruption as well. I think that's the first state that we need to make, and the second state that we really need to counteract is, out of all the people you listed, you failed to list the one most influential in terms of the Constitution. That was Mr. Palazzo himself. You see, there's a plan that Matthew and I have been working on, and we weren't really sure about closing it because it's a bit controversial in the sense that it's never really been done in recent history. But through Mr. Palazzo's guidance, we have talked to him, and I think this really goes with Ryan Boodram's points. We are considering rewriting the entirety of the Student Union Constitution based on the one that we have right now, but through the guidance of not only Mr. Palazzo, Ms. Pedrick, and even consulting that of the entirety of the student union right now.
Well, that is wonderful, John, but that also begs the question of why have you not mentioned this anywhere on your platform thus far, especially when you have mentioned very far-reaching and, in some cases, ridiculously ambitious goals. Just to name a few, such as opening the 5th floor balcony, which has been promised year after year and has clearly not been accomplished year after year, which also begs the question of what makes you think you will accomplish it now. But if this was truly one of your plans, you would have expected to find it somewhere on your platform, and it is nowhere to be seen, even though your platform includes many more ambitious goals. That is just something we would like to note.
If you guys want to respond for another 30 seconds, a minute.
Okay, so as I stated just before, I didn't release it because Mr. Palazzo guided me and stated that it would be too controversial of a goal to really release at the start. But since everyone is getting into the argument of the Constitution, I thought I might as well just ride the bandwagon with you. And next, I'd like to point out the fact that yes, they're ambitious goals, and I've been a part of the student union the past year. Matthew's been part of it the past 2. And I've had 2 siblings here, Matthew's have 3. We know it's been promised multiple times, but there's a reason we're promising it this year. It shows true promise, and not only has Mr. Palazzo personally talked to me about it, Ms. Pedrick has also mentioned it. How many of you know that the faculty go out on the 5th floor atrium, well, 5th floor balcony, and have a barbecue at the end of the year as a faculty day? Yeah, so clearly it's been done before, and what is preventing us from opening it to the small amount that follows the safety codes that the administration does as well?
So this ends the portion of BOE questioning. We're now going to open the floor for public questioning. We have 4 questions from the public. The first question will be for Christoph and Kate.
So does anyone have? Oh yes, Kieran.
Can I just speak for 10 minutes?
I
apologize.
Wait,
Can I like actually?
No, I actually have a question. Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a jokester. I'm a comedian. It's my part-time job if college doesn't work out well. I'm sorry. You said to just one question. Then, if I have a general question,
It's going to be a general question, but Christoph and Kieran will answer.
Okay. Let it just be known that this is a completely objective question. I did not prep those two on this question beforehand. But speaking about apathy, because that came up a lot of times in making the SU more accessible, obviously that's something that everyone runs on. And it's something that everyone tries to accomplish. It's not just something that we idly say because it's something that the constituency wants to hear. There's a huge problem with that, and I've been talking to Palazzo about this for a while because it's one of the things that I wish I did better, and which every president beforehand wishes they did better. But it's a thing that pretty much never has been accomplished ever since Palazzo has been COSA till now through the Wine War era. And it's how to fight apathy.
Started by directly giving freshmen a link to sign up to a mailing list where they would actually receive weekly, bi-weekly emails stating like what the student union is doing, how they can get involved, like what we've done, informing them essentially that the student union does exist, which a frightening amount of freshmen in my freshman year did not have any clue about. So if you're talking about concrete ideas, then these are our concrete ideas. Thank you.
So, what we believe to be the key to fighting apathy is to, increase student awareness and student interest in Stuyvesant-run activities. So, as with the communication goals we mentioned earlier, we plan on having a bunch of implementable ways to just keep students more in the know.
And we're all talking about what we plan to do, but here's some things Matthew and I have done. We've not only increased the amount of events that this entirety of the year has seen, we've opened the Student Union Lounge. We've opened the metaphorical heart of the Student Union to every single person in our school, and I think that really, to quote from last year, opens the floodgates against apathy.
All right. You guys now get 2 minutes to respond.
All right. Well, that was actually going to be a question that I was going to ask John when we got a turn to ask each other questions, but thank you for bringing it up early. All right, John, you've listed the opening of the Student Union Lounge as one of your achievements on your website. However, it should be common knowledge by now that it was set up entirely by Mr. Moran and Ms. Pedrick without even consulting you and Kieran. To quote from a Spectator article from December 10th, titled, "Student Union Office Transformed into Student Lounge," and this is quoting directly from the Spectator. "Ms. Pedrick and I took it upon ourselves to jumpstart their refurbishment," Moran said. "This initiative was taken by the administration with little communication to the SU. The SU was involved only because a lot of the stuff that was in the main area of the SU was theirs, so they were consulted as far as being asked to organize and clean up," Moran said. "For the SU, this lack of communication was a major concern. Oh, and look, a quote from you. It was an issue that they completely blindsided us," Junior and SU Vice President Jonathan Ong said. So that does beg the question why you're taking credit for something that was clearly not your doing.
You're afraid that you do.
Am I? Am I starting? Okay. I guess this really drives home the point of how little communication there is between, I guess, just Christoph and the rest of the student union. If Kieran himself could attest right now what really happened,
I'm afraid that you go that far.
I apologize. I redact my statement. Don't listen to me. If Kieran himself could attest what really happened, Mr. Moran and Ms. Pedrick, as they quoted, yes, jump-started the cleaning and refurbishing of the student union. But if you do not recognize their intentional goal, which was to make it an extension of a study hall of the library, what we fought for was for student rights. What we fought for was a peaceful place for students to go and rest in this time and this chaotic hallways that is Stuyvesant. So what I'm saying that I'm claiming credit for is, yes, the Student Union Lounge. I did not state that we jump-started the refurbishment of the Student Union. We were consulted multiple times, and Mr. Moran stated himself so that we were consulted. I don't know why you're shaking your head, but from furthering on, I guess we'll just go more into the idea that, yes, the Student Union Lounge was initially locked, and then we had our doors torn open, and then the doors are back on, but now they're open at a normal period of time, which is a very confusing history to me, and I think it's best to describe it as an initial miscommunication between the administration, but clarified between between myself, George Kitsios, and Kieran Carpin.
At the end of their question. Like that was kind of it's going to be less than a minute. It's going to be like 20 seconds.
Okay.
1 point.
Hold on.
Hold on. If you make rules like that midway between...
Well, no, it actually was made before the debate started.
Cool. Sorry.
What'd you say, Kieran? No. Oh, for the record, since it has been brought up, all the candidates have already been informed of the rules of the debate and the times of the debate. So just please keep that in mind.
All right.
Kieran Carpin, woo!
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you guys?
All right. Thank you. All right. All I wish to note here is I will quote something from our official minutes, which have never been released to the public, for the Student Union meeting on November 12, 2014. And this is, I believe, slightly prior to when the SU was forcibly opened by Ms. Pedrick and Mr. Moran. To quote from the minutes, this was written by Charlie Zen, our secretary. Cleaning the SU. The SU has been cleaned and it is looking super nice. Ms. Pedrick, Mr. Moran, and Ms. Zhang have expressed the desire to turn the common room into an extension of the library. Since many of us oppose this idea, we are currently looking into who has jurisdiction over the common room and will work together with the other organizations that hold offices in the SU to talk to the administration. So, I'm not sure what you were saying when you said that you suggested it first. Thank you.
Good.
You guys want 1 minute?
I think we're good.
All right, so second question from the audience.
Oh.
If you do not have, okay, well then. All right. I would like Theodore to ask.
There's been a lot of talk about the Constitution not being followed and needing to be reformed, but to what extent has that actually impeded how effective the SU is operating, or is it just a bureaucratic hiccup that hasn't really had any impact?
That's general clarification you're asking. A clarification.
In what regard?
Essentially, can you repeat what you were asking?
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about the Constitution not being followed, but to what extent has that made the SU a less effective body? Has it really impacted it, or is it just a bureaucratic hiccup?
So just to repeat that question for everyone just one more time. The Constitution does not appear to be followed, so how is that impeding the SU's ability to function? So for this question...
John and Matthew.
So, as you may or may not know, I think it goes without saying that this SU year has been quite successful. We unveiled the Spring Fling, we brought back the tradition of precinct Battle of the Bands, and we brought semi-formal outside of style. So especially from a lower classman perspective, I think we kind of raised the bar in terms of what's expected for future caucuses.
And speaking upon more of just how impeded the student union was this year, I don't necessarily know how to tackle that question because it's kind of very broad, but I guess we'll tackle the idea that we have done a lot this year, not just as senior caucus, junior caucus, SU, sophomore caucus, and freshman caucus. We've not only given donations, these are the donations referring to in my platform last year, to Red Cross, Arista, and a number of different donations that are always set to leave. What Christoph may not be aware of is that monthly we get mails from Red Cross, like the actual Red Cross, Alzheimer's Association, and many other charities, and we do give out monthly to these different charities. But what really needs to strike home is that, yes, Theo is right. We have talked about the Constitution not being followed this year. But to what extent has the student union faltered is really up to you. How many events have you been to? How aware of the student union's actions are you this year? And just how, I guess for juniors, think of J-Prom, right? I'm not saying that that was the student union's direct consequence. Of course, that was junior caucus, right? Yeah. But as a result, they are a branch of student union. So I want all of you to think about that. Think about the events that you've been to this year and decide for yourself how successful we truly have been. Thank you.
All right, I'm reading from the Constitution here. It will work to ensure that the voice of the student body is heard in all discussion of school policy. No student who truly shows an interest in investing their time in the student union shall be turned away. No student's request of help from or query to the student union shall go unheard or rejected out of hand.
Precisely. And there have been multiple times when I have asked the student union for help, either personally, because of something William and I wished to do, or we were relaying ideas that people in our grade gave to us, and those requests were downright ignored. In fact, in the minutes from our October 8th meeting, the second of 3 executive council meetings we've held this year, it actually does say, Christoph has been trying to get Ms. Zhang and Mr. Wong to provide students with deny.edu emails. Even though there's a lot of student support, Ms. Zhang does not have the means, and Mr. Wong does not have the time. Christoph is hoping for more SU support for emails and needs our help. This is something I did bring up during the first student union meeting of the year, and we ultimately did not receive any help. So that didn't really come as a surprise, considering how we had already asked for help a year before, and we received no help then either. Another idea that I suggested to the student union that was suggested to me by someone in my grade was that our apparel sales, and even things such as our flower sales, are slower and less efficient than they need to be, because why should students be handling money and writing everything down in checkbooks when we could just use a cash register? And for that reason, back in September, I suggested the idea of the student union just purchasing a cash register. It's not that expensive. We could easily have gotten one for $200, maybe $300. That would serve us for years, maybe even decades to come, and would save everyone a lot of time and trouble whenever we sold anything. That cash register was not actually purchased by the student union until late March. And one has to wonder if this is something that someone suggested to me back in September, which they did, and I voiced this idea back in September and repeatedly reminded the student union that this is something that people are asking for. Why did it take so long for it to happen? So clearly, if more attention was paid to what the Constitution is actually saying, it would not take up as much time. And I've already mentioned the issues of the Constitution that essentially promote nepotism and how the people voting on the impeachment of any elected officials are the people appointed by those elected officials. I shouldn't have to explain that for everyone here to understand just how absurd that is. So yeah, I believe that the Constitution, we think that the Constitution is definitely a major hindrance to what the student union could be, and that is why we plan to revise it and make it less, frankly, less corrupt if we win. Thank you.
Susan, when does this end?
We're planning for 5:30. 5:30?
No later than 5:30. Hold on. All right.
There is no.
Oh, guys, after this, there's not gonna be after this 2 minute, right? 2 minutes. There's not gonna be a minute responses, okay?
Okay.
And then we're gonna go on to after the 2 questions after that, we're gonna have you to ask for the questions.
Three questions.
3 questions. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we're gonna have to correct some fallacies.
Yeah, we're good. I think the fallacies that Kieran is pointing out is the relative haste as to why we took so long to purchase a cash register, and that would be because Junior Caucus President Christoph decided that he wanted to fix an old cash register, which never did get fixed, and it took us several months, not months, I wouldn't say, several weeks to wait for his replies. And in terms of the student ASTAI EDU emails and how much support you received for that, I don't know if I can question the audience, but Freshman Caucus, I don't know if you recognize that ever happened. Kieran, I don't know if you what I mean by that is, I don't know if you, Kyle, Chief of Staff, for anyone.
I do remember discussing that. I also remember speaking specifically about whether or not that would actually help, whether or not Mr. Wall
would progress anything, yes.
I think it was Mitchell Tepper is here, and we will discuss that.
I would prefer if this was done at a later portion, like I said. I was going to do 30 seconds ago, actually, so can you guys like that?
Alright, then I guess we'll absorb our time.
I give my time to the camera. Mom, you on top.